You are going to die, and no one will remember you existed. This is not a metaphor or a poetic line to provoke emotion. It is a clinical, physical, cosmic inevitability. Your name, your laughter, your dreams, your fears, your Instagram handle, your carefully crafted personality, all of it will vanish without leaving the slightest trace. The universe will not keep a backup of you. Your stories will not echo through time. Your body will rot, your mind will flicker out, and the most humiliating truth is that it never mattered in the first place. You wake up early for a job you hate, force a smile you don't feel, drown your anxiety, pretend everything is fine, scroll through lives that look better than yours, and the universe remains perfectly indifferent. Nothing stops because you are suffering. The world doesn't care if you're breaking inside. Earth continues to spin, the stock market continues to open, oceans continue to rise, and people continue to post happy pictures while you quietly fall apart. This is the theater where humanity performs its delusion, a theater without a writer or a director. We weren't invited here, we were thrown here. Everyone acts as if existence has meaning, but the script was either written by a blind idiot or by no one at all. Cioran understood this better than almost anyone. The very fact that we were born is a disgrace. We are accidents of biology, condemned by evolution to be conscious. A dog sleeps peacefully because it doesn't understand the futility of life. Meanwhile, you lie awake at 3 a.m. asking questions that have no answers and never will. Maybe the worst punishment isn't death, maybe it is living long enough to understand life clearly. Cioran didn't try to comfort, he tried to expose the wound, tear off the veil and reveal the bones underneath. Life was never beautiful. Humans just invented beauty to hide the stench. If you expect this to turn into a motivational speech, you're in the wrong place. The truth isn't soft, helpful, or uplifting. It bleeds. And today we look directly at it. Life is shit, and we will be forgotten like insects crushed under a shoe. No achievement you chase will survive time. No legacy you dream of will outlast entropy. Everything mankind built, pyramids, empires, ideologies, rockets, religions, is destined to dissolve into cosmic rubble. You can plant trees, raise children, build companies, write books, fight for causes, change the world, but the world will die too. Everything ends. Everything collapses. Everything disappears. There is no existence more absurd than that of man. We are not here because of destiny or divine plan. We are here because of a glitch in the randomness of chemistry. We spend our lives maintaining a theater of productivity and purpose, while the backdrop is a void. The Egyptians built pyramids for eternity. Time devoured them. The Romans ruled the world. Now their ruins host tourists taking selfies. And what are we doing? Posting stories, chasing digital approval, pretending we matter. We are a species kept alive by inertia, cowardice, and stupidity. Life is a mindless gear grinding billions of bodies into dust. Every generation believes now it will work, but it never has. Look at the photographs of the Vietnam War. Look at the trenches of 1914. Look at the bodies piled like abandoned objects in concentration camps. They all believed they were fighting for something meaningful. Now they are footnotes. Worse, they are ignored. The belief in progress is one of humanity's most successful lies. If humans vanish right now, the universe wouldn't notice. Silence wouldn't tremble. For Cioran, life wasn't a miracle to celebrate, it was a tedious interruption in a peaceful void. Existence is a useless noise. We are the static on the universe's screen. Live every day as if it were your last is a line invented to sell seminars. The truth is every day lived as one step closer to decay. Lucidity is not liberation, it is a trap. Knowing everything ends doesn't make life meaningful, it makes enthusiasm impossible. Death is the only certainty you own. Everything else is borrowed. We are the only species cursed with the awareness of its own end. The dog sleeps calmly. The tree grows without questioning. The human thinks, and therefore rots from the inside. Consciousness is not evolution's prize, it is evolution's punishment. It is the malignant tumor of awareness. The mind doesn't produce thoughts to help you, it produces thoughts to torture you. It creates doubts, fears, anxieties, obsessions. It makes silence unbearable and mirrors threatening. The more you know, the more you suffer. Neuroscience confirms it. Brains with more connections, more reflection, more awareness also have higher rates of depression. Excess synapses produce psychic pain. The most brilliant minds in history collapsed under their own depth. Nietzsche broke. David Foster Wallace hanged himself. Artaud dissolved into madness. They weren't weak, they were lucid. Ignorance is light. Lucidity is heavy. Optimism isn't courage, it's denial dressed as strength. The more we understand ourselves, the more we despise ourselves. Humans are not noble. We are flesh that overthinks its own disappearance. Thinking is reopening the wound again and again. Religion, ideology, and self-help weren't born from truth. They were born from terror. The terror of nothingness, the terror of death, the terror of meaninglessness. God wasn't discovered, he was invented. Purpose wasn't revealed, it was engineered. Hope isn't noble. It's a desperate reflex. Hope is anesthesia. Society runs on anesthesia. Democracy, patriotism, meritocracy, capitalism, all of it is collective sedation. Society is a giant sedation chamber trying to prevent panic. The truth we avoid is simple. Life goes nowhere. History doesn't progress. It repeats with better tools of destruction. The same primitive fear wearing modern clothes. And the darkest irony is this: not even your pain will survive. What destroys you today will be dust tomorrow. Even your scars won't matter when the flesh that holds them disappears. In the end, nothing remains, nothing remembers, nothing cares. History pretends to be a record of human greatness, but in truth, it is a museum of carnage curated by victors who rewrote massacres as progress. We call civilizations great because we refuse to face the horror that built them. Every flag is stitched with blood. Every anthem is a hymn to collective amnesia. Every statue stands over invisible graves. Look closely at any world power and all you see is extermination. Look at the United States, forged through colonization, slavery, and nuclear fire. Look at France, revolutions decorated with guillotines, colonies drowned in silence. Look at Germany, a monument to technologically efficient murder. Look at Russia, empires raised with chains and gulags. Even countries worshipped for their beauty were built on erased cultures, exterminated tribes, broken families, and children starved so others could parade wealth. But humans love rewriting horror into destiny. We transform slaughter into founding mythology and call it nationhood. History does not redeem us, it condemns us, page after page, generation after generation, showing that suffering is the only consistent legacy our species produces. If humans were capable of learning, Auschwitz would have ended all hatred. Hiroshima would have ended all war. Chernobyl would have ended our arrogance. But here we are inventing deadlier weapons, manufacturing misery at industrial scale, polishing the blade with each new era. We call it modernity, but Cioran would call it the perfection of stupidity. The belief that we evolve morally is a fairy tale for children. Time doesn't make us better, it only makes us more efficient at destruction. Humanity isn't on a staircase climbing upward, it is on a treadmill, sweating, bleeding, screaming, but not moving an inch. And like blind prisoners, we convince ourselves the spinning walls are progress. Civilization is a thin layer of paint over barbarism. Underneath the suits, the smartphones, the skyscrapers, the laws, nothing has changed. We are still the same frightened mammals competing for territory, dominance, validation, survival. But now, with algorithms and nuclear codes. We replace spears with drones, rituals with propaganda, tribalism with nationalism, but the instinct remained untouched. Civilization didn't elevate us, it only refined our cruelty. We industrialized despair, we globalized inequality, we digitized loneliness. The suffering that once belonged to villages now belongs to the entire planet. Even the systems we worship, capitalism, communism, democracy, were not created to free us. They were created to manage us. They give structure to chaos, illusions to emptiness, and narrative to pain. Capitalism promises freedom, but builds anxiety. Communism promises equality, but ends in purges. Democracies promise choice, but trap people in cycles of manipulation. Ideologies function like religions without heaven, but with slogans. They give people something to believe in so they don't collapse under the weight of truth. Humans would rather kill for an illusion than live without one. And so, history becomes a loop of revolutions replacing revolutions, tyrants replacing tyrants, systems collapsing only to be rebuilt with the same flaws wearing new symbols. But the most perverse cruelty is that even our personal suffering, the pain we believe is shaping us, defining us, consuming us, even that won't survive. The heartbreaks, betrayals, losses, traumas, the nights you thought you wouldn't make it, the days you felt like breathing was an act of violence, none of it will matter. Even the wounds that made you who you are will fade into nothing when your body decays. Pain feels enormous while we're inside it, but in the timeline of the universe, it is a microscopic tremor that disappears instantly. Not even your misery gets to be remembered. Not even your suffering earns permanence. Even memory, our desperate attempt to resist oblivion, is fragile and doomed. Think of your grandparents' grandparents. You likely don't know their names, yet they lived entire lives with hopes and heartbreaks as intense as yours. They loved, feared, dreamed, cried, worked, aged, died, and today they are nothing. Not even dust with a name. Cemeteries are full of people who were once the whole world to someone, now reduced to eroded stones the rain no longer respects. That is the destiny of all human bonds. Love fades, memory fades, names fade. Everything dissolves in the slow rain of time. And even those who changed the world were not spared. Homer, we don't even know if he existed. Jesus, fragmented into 1,000 contradictory interpretations. Alexander the Great, now reduced to a meme of masculinity in a paragraph in history books. Cleopatra, more fiction than fact. Socrates, a silhouette built from secondhand stories. The farther you go into history, the more you realize that nothing survived intact. Heroes become myths, myths become symbols, symbols become dust. If the giants didn't survive time, why do we believe we will? But the void isn't just behind us, it is ahead of us. The future offers no refuge. The universe is expanding towards its own death. One day, all stars will burn out, all galaxies will freeze apart, no light will exist, no heat, no chemical reactions, no sound, no memory, no consciousness, a universe of absolute silence. In that final darkness, humanity will not simply be gone, it will be unwitnessed. No archive will remain, no trace that life ever flickered here. Eternity is not full, it is empty. Eternity is the forgetting of everything that ever existed, and the universe will not mourn the loss. The human species is a tiny spark in a cosmic void, trying desperately to create illusions strong enough to protect us from the brutal truth that nothing lasts. We invent meaning, worship progress, attach ourselves to identities, chase legacy, cling to hope, all to avoid collapsing under the knowledge that existence is a brief accident between two infinities of silence. We are biological machines programmed to lie to ourselves just enough to function. Hope is the operating system of organisms afraid of the dark. But here is the final cruelty. Even knowing all this, we continue living. Consciousness keeps dragging itself through time because it doesn't have an escape button. We endure the absurd because the alternative, immediate annihilation, terrifies us. Cioran wrote that life persists because of cowardice, habit, and biological inertia. No philosophy can save us. No ideology can free us. No religion can justify us. Existence simply continues until it doesn't. And in that gap, between birth and disappearance, we pretend, act, hope, suffer, love, lie, break, rebuild, rot, question, despair, and eventually dissolve. And maybe that is the darkest truth of all, not that life is meaningless, but that we are incapable of facing that meaninglessness without building illusions around it. The human condition is the inability to live without lies, and the inability to believe them fully. We exist in that impossible gap, aware enough to suffer, blind enough to continue. What we call identity is nothing more than a fragile arrangement of impulses, fears, memories, and borrowed narratives stitched together so the organism doesn't implode under the weight of its own emptiness. You didn't choose your name, your face, your body, your birthplace, your culture, your desires, or even most of your thoughts. They were given to you, imposed on you, injected into you. You think you are you, but you are just a temporary configuration of conditions that could have easily been different. Change a few chemicals in your brain and your personality shifts. Change your childhood environment and your morality flips. Change your language and even your sense of reality mutates. The self is not real. It is a hallucination evolved to keep the organism alive long enough to reproduce. A story told by neurons so they don't shut down. Yet, we cling to this illusion with desperate intensity because without it, we fall into the abyss of impersonality, the realization that nothing inside us is truly ours. Love, purpose, morality, all these supposedly sacred human experiences are neurological tricks, chemical bribes, survival mechanisms polished by evolution. You don't love because love is profound. You love because nature needed a system to keep organisms bonded long enough to protect offspring. You don't have morals because morality is universal. You have them because your society taught you rules that prevent chaos long enough to maintain labor and reproduction. You don't seek purpose because purpose exists. You seek purpose because the alternative is unbearable. Meaning is not discovered, it is manufactured. And yet, knowing this doesn't free you. It only makes the mechanisms more absurd. You become aware that every emotion, every belief, every attachment is a puppet string pulled by chemistry. You are not the puppeteer. You are the puppet who realized the strings don't lead anywhere. And even consciousness, the supposed pinnacle of evolution, is nothing but a side effect of the brain misfiring in its attempt to predict the world. Your thoughts are not divine, they are electrical signals. Your memories are not sacred, they are distortions created by a brain that lies to you constantly. Every time you recall something, you rewrite it. Your past is fiction, your future is imagination, your present is a flicker between two voids. And yet this flicker feels like eternity because the mind cannot grasp its own insignificance without collapsing into panic. So it invents continuity where there is only chaos. What makes this worse is that consciousness comes with a built-in flaw. It cannot turn itself off. You can distract it, numb it, intoxicate it, overload it, but it never truly sleeps. Even in your dreams, it keeps generating narratives, fears, symbols, distortions. A dog sleeps and wakes without existential crisis. A human sleeps and dreams of death, failure, loss, absurdity. Consciousness is an engine that cannot stop producing suffering. The more it reflects, the more it corrodes itself. Thought is self-cannibalizing. The mind is a machine that eats its operator. And society, instead of easing this burden, intensifies it. We created structures that constantly measure, compare, evaluate, judge, and exhaust the individual. Social media turns existence into a competition for attention. Capitalism commodifies every second of your time. Education trains you to obey deadlines, not to understand life. Work reduces you to productivity metrics. The result is a species trapped in a permanent state of inadequacy. You constantly feel behind, not because you are weak, but because the system requires your insecurity to function. If humans woke up one day without anxiety, billions of dollars in industries would collapse overnight. So the system feeds the fire. It convinces you that your worth depends on how well you perform in the race, a race with no finish line, no meaning, and no reward. We do not live in a civilization built for human flourishing. We live in a civilization built for extraction. Extraction of labor, of time, of attention, of emotion, of data, of energy. You are not a citizen. You are fuel. And like all fuel, once burned, you are discarded. The world does not care if you are tired, grieving, lost, broken, or drowning internally. It only cares if you keep functioning. You were not born into society. You We're absorbed into an economic machine that demands your life in tiny pieces. And the cruelest part is that most people blame themselves for collapsing under the weight of a system designed to crush them. Even our relationships suffer under the pressure of this machinery. We don't know how to love freely. We know how to love conditionally. We love through fear, trauma, expectation, projection, and insecurity. We attach ourselves to others not because we understand them, but because we fear the emptiness inside us. And when relationships fail, we experience not just heartbreak, but existential collapse. Because every breakup, every betrayal, every abandonment is a reminder of the truth we try to avoid. We are fundamentally alone in an indifferent universe. Loneliness is not a temporary feeling, it is the base condition of existence. Everything else is distraction. And even distraction fails eventually. Entertainment becomes repetitive, success becomes hollow, pleasure becomes painful, hedonism becomes exhausting, productivity becomes meaningless. Eventually, every human reaches a moment where life feels like a loop repeating itself endlessly. Different faces, same emptiness. Different ideas, same void. Different experiences, same decay. That is the point where lucidity begins, the moment you realize the world has nothing left to offer except variations of the same suffering. This is why most people cling to hope, not because hope is rational, but because hopelessness strips away the final illusion that protects our sanity. Hope is not optimism. Hope is denial wearing a mask of courage. Hope is the human refusal to accept that nothing we do matters. It is the last lie we tell ourselves before the darkness becomes too clear. Without hope, we face the raw, unfiltered reality. Existence is directional only in the sense that it moves toward decay. Everything we touch, everything we build, everything we love, everything we believe will eventually fade into dust. And yet we continue, not out of bravery, but out of biology, not out of meaning, but out of instinct. The organism wants to survive even when survival is suffering. Life persists the same way a fire persists, because it cannot do anything else. The tragedy is that consciousness makes us aware of this. We know we are temporary, we know we are fragile, we know we are meaningless. And still we wake up, still we move, still we pretend, still we obey the script with full knowledge that the play leads to oblivion. We are the only creatures cursed with the awareness of our own futility. And the awareness refuses to shut up. Humans aren't tragic because they die, humans are tragic because they know they die. A flower wilts and is gone. A human wilts and analyzes the wilting. That is the punishment of being born with a brain too complex to be peaceful and too limited to be wise. We are trapped between two impossibilities, the inability to find meaning and the inability to live without searching for it. And so we keep walking in circles, building illusions, tearing them down, grieving, rebuilding, despairing, continuing. It is not strength, it is not courage. It is the inertia of a species unable to accept the silence waiting at the end. When you look closely at humanity, you notice that what we call civilization is a desperate attempt to escape the raw truth of our insignificance. Cities are monuments to denial, glowing distractions built to conceal the abyss beneath us. Every building, every ritual, every belief system, every tradition is a psychological shield against the horror of existing without foundation. We invented culture not out of genius, but out of fear. We couldn't bear the weight of cosmic irrelevance, so we created stories, values, goals, identities, linguistic scaffolding around a void. It is not intelligence, but terror that built the world. People talk about humanity evolving toward enlightenment, but that is a fantasy. We do not evolve, we decorate. We add layers of abstraction to hide the fact that we are still frightened animals staring at the dark, hoping it won't stare back. And even language itself is a form of escape. Words do not describe reality, they soften it. They turn agony into metaphor, fear into philosophy, chaos into narrative. Without language, consciousness would collapse under its own weight. But language betrays us too because it distances us from truth even as it tries to capture it. We say grief instead of the world just took something from you and will take everything else too. We say love instead of a temporary attachment built on chemicals that will fade or fracture. We say meaning instead of a subjective illusion created to avoid despair. Every word is a curtain over what we're too fragile to face. And the irony is that the more language we develop, the more we drown in interpretation. Words multiply, clarity dies. We become overwhelmed not by silence, but by explanations. We talk ourselves further away from reality, then wonder why we feel lost.
And yet even silence offers no salvation. When you sit alone in a quiet room long enough, without music, without a phone, without conversation, something terrifying happens. The mind begins to speak in its real voice, not the distracted one you hear daily, but the raw one underneath everything, the one that whispers truths you spend your entire life trying to shut out. Silence peels back your illusions. It shows you how fragile your mental architecture is, how close you are to collapse. Some people call silence peaceful, but that's because they never stayed in it long enough. True silence isn't calming, it's suffocating. It reveals the emptiness inside and the futility outside. This is why people fear loneliness, not because they need others, but because they need noise. Noise keeps the truth away.
When humans are deprived of distraction, they unravel. You see it in sensory deprivation tanks where people hallucinate. You see it in solitary confinement cells where inmates lose their minds. You see it in monks who meditate for years and eventually confront the terrifying paradox at the heart of consciousness, the realization that there is no self inside the mind, only awareness observing its own emptiness. And once you see that, once you glimpse the void behind the thought I, it becomes nearly impossible to return to normal life. Most people sense this intuitively, so they live in constant distraction. Work becomes a shield, entertainment becomes anesthesia, relationships become noise, happiness becomes performance. Everything becomes a way to avoid thinking for too long because clarity is corrosive. But even distraction is temporary. Eventually, the noise fades, the job ends, the relationship fails, the entertainment grows repetitive, the body ages. And little by little, the truth you've been avoiding returns, slowly, like a shadow stretching across the floor. The older you get, the less you can hide from it. You start losing people, grandparents, parents, friends. You watch the world strip away everything that once gave you stability. And one day, it hits you with brutal clarity. Everything you love is fragile, temporary, dissolving. You begin to realize that all your ambitions, all your fears, all your achievements, all your plans are as meaningless as dust floating in sunlight. This realization doesn't come suddenly. It comes slowly, like water wearing down stone. And by the time you fully understand it, you are too exhausted to resist. This is why aging terrifies people. It's not the wrinkles or the weakening body, it's the increasing exposure to truth. Youth is protected by illusion, the illusion of time, potential, freedom, invincibility. But age strips all of that away. The more birthdays you accumulate, the thinner the veil becomes. You begin to see through the cracks of existence. You begin to hear the quiet ticking of the universe reminding you that everything is running out. And yet society treats age as wisdom, when in reality, it is erosion. The older you get, the more aware you become of your insignificance, your limitations, your approaching disappearance. Age doesn't make people wise, it makes them tired. Tired of pretending, tired of hoping, tired of carrying the unbearable weight of consciousness. Nothing is more tragic than watching someone realize too late that their entire life was spent chasing illusions. You see it in elderly people who reflect on their past and ask, what was the point of it all? They sacrificed their youth for careers that forgot them. They raised children who grew distant. They loved people who died. They chased goals that didn't matter. And now they sit alone, facing the truth they spent decades avoiding. They were temporary, and they always knew it. The tragedy isn't that life is short, it's that humans spent most of it lying to themselves to make it seem bearable. And yet, even knowing all this, we cling to existence with a strange, desperate loyalty. We hold on to life as if it belongs to us, even though every second is borrowed. Why? Because the instinct to survive is older than consciousness. It's older than language, older than fear, older than the universe as we understand it. Life doesn't ask whether it's worth living, it simply refuses to stop. This is the real root of the human condition. We are creatures trapped inside a biological imperative we cannot override, forced to live lives that we know, intellectually, have no inherent meaning. Consciousness was an accident, and like all accidents, it left damage. We are the damage. The universe owes us nothing. It didn't ask for our existence, and it won't mourn our absence. We are not guests. We are intrusions. And everything we call purpose is our attempt to justify an existence that never needed justification. But here is the cruelest truth of all. Even this awareness, this deep understanding of our own futility does not free us. It imprisons us further. Because once you see the truth, you cannot unsee it. Once you understand the absurdity of everything, you cannot fully return to illusion. You become a ghost inside your own life, watching yourself go through motions you no longer believe in. But this ghostliness, this internal detachment, also reveals something unexpected. When the illusions fall away, when hope collapses, when meaning evaporates, what remains is a strange kind of clarity. A clarity stripped of expectation, stripped of narrative, stripped of fear. You begin to realize that the universe's indifference is not against you, it simply is. And in that indifference, there is a freedom unlike anything society teaches. Not freedom in the motivational sense, not freedom as empowerment, but freedom as detachment, freedom as the absence of obligation, freedom as the recognition that nothing needs to make sense, freedom as the recognition that without meaning, there is nothing left to fear losing. This does not make life better. It does not make suffering beautiful. It does not turn despair into enlightenment. But it does expose the final paradox of existence. When everything is meaningless, you are burdened by nothing. When nothing matters, nothing can destroy you. When the universe does not care, you are free from its judgment. And in that thin space, that sliver of awareness between illusion and oblivion, you might find not happiness, not purpose, but an honest moment of existence that belongs only to you. A moment unpolluted by lies, untouched by hope, unprotected by story. A moment of pure lucidity. And maybe that is the closest thing to truth we will ever have. You can also use super thanks, a simple feature that works like a direct thank you, almost like saying, "This saved me a little today." And if you can't, that's fine. Just watching, commenting, sharing, being here, you're already helping more than you imagine. But if this video meant something to you in a world that seems meaningless, maybe now is the time to give something back, not out of obligation, but because sometimes you recognize something rare and want to help keep it alive.